Hello, citizens of the internet. My name is AJ. I am the A to Z artist. Welcome back to my channel for Spooky Month, or a little late for Spooky Month, actually a couple of weeks late. I had planned to do this video a couple of weeks ago. Time got away from me, and I just kind of decided to post it now since the drawings were already done. I just wanted to get them out to you guys. The idea for this week was kind of something I want to start doing with kind of maybe bi-weekly, maybe something like that, where it's what I like to call a sketchbook vlog, where I go through and talk about something in my life, talk about something that I'm interested in, maybe do a review here and there, but draw while I'm doing that. I kind of realized recently that there were a lot of things I needed to work on with my art, and I was just running out of time to do different studies, and so I decided that I run a YouTube channel. I figured, why not do the studies in the videos? So this week, given that it was supposed to happen right after October, a little more thematic in that way, but it decided again to just post it today. The video is my top 10 favorite horror movies. I talked a little bit about my favorites back in my last video with the 6 horror fan arts. But yeah, I just decided that today would be a good chance to go through and talk about my top 10s. Decided that it would be a good way to get some studying done, have some fun, doing just some fun little drawings, no pressure, no nothing. So I hope you guys enjoy. My question of the week this week is the exact same as my last week, which is, what's your favorite scary movie? With that out of the way, hit the thumbs up button if you like this video. Subscribe to my channel if you like what you see here. I do a lot of nerdy videos like this. And leave a comment down below, either with the question of the week or what your thoughts on these drawings are. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. Number 10 is a rather new one on this list. I just watched it this year for the first time, even though it's been out since about 2000. The movie is Session 9. Man, I am really upset that I missed out on this one for so long. To be honest, the reason this one is ranked so low is because it's a slow burn. The scary stuff really doesn't happen until about 3/4 of the way into the movie, and really, at that point, it really isn't that scary, which is fine. I would still consider it a horror movie, and it's a really good story. There's a really good cast. It just doesn't bring the scares, and that's fine. That can be more of a psychological, atmospheric thing, and this movie has atmosphere in spades. The real main focus of this movie is the slowly dissolving psychology of the main characters. Like, they are really starting to lose their minds while they're in this old asylum. And I don't know. I loved this movie because it kept me guessing from very beginning to the very end. I didn't know what was going to happen next, and that is, for as much stories as I take in, that is something that's really rare for me. And another thing I really enjoyed about this movie is the fact that none of these characters, nothing was sacred in this movie. Everyone was at risk. There were no given survivors. There were just cannon fodder to this villain. I'm not even going to... Describing who the villain is going to spoil the movie. So, so I don't know. I love this movie. There were a lot of really cool things, especially the sanatorium setting. Since it has such a sordid history, they're always really great fodder for horror movies. So, great job with Session 9. I always really enjoy it. That's my number 10. Let's move on. Number 9. There are 2 main things that really got me into Stephen King when I was younger. The first is just my dad's adoration for the writer and his stories. We watched a lot of his movies when I was younger, and most of them probably I was too young to watch, which is fine because now I love horror movies. Back then it scared the crap out of me, so thank you, Dad, for that. But that is one of those things that really got me into the Stephen King's writing, was just my dad. The other thing was The Mist. This movie is pretty much my entire high school summed up into one movie. Not necessarily the plot, definitely not the plot, but just the fact that I watched this movie over and over and over again when I was in high school. I really forced my friends to watch this with me, as many times as I get them to because I love this movie so much. I actually haven't read the book yet for it, which is just a short novella, but it's one of King's most respected short stories. It's one of King's most respected stories, and in terms of his movies, I think adapting a novella is smart because his books are usually thousands of pages, and it's kind of hard to adapt into a movie. Well, you kind of need a little more space, so adapting a shorter story works better for Stephen King. Looking back on this movie, I think I might actually have a deeper set claustrophobia than I originally believed because most of the movies in this list, the place is very confining to these characters. Maybe not necessarily physically confining, but definitely psychologically. The Session 9 was like that with the sanatorium. Like they were in a big place, but they were trapped in this place. They couldn't escape from it, and I think that is terrifying to me. I think that's something I really love in horror movies because it's something that actually really scares me. I don't want to be trapped in places, and The Mist does that really well with this shopping center, this grocery store, and these characters are just forced into this place as these extra-dimensional creatures are stomping around town. That feeling of being stuck, I mean, not only is it a pretty good metaphor for 2020, but it's also a trope that scares me, and I love that. What really interests me about The Mist isn't the fact that it's there's all these monsters running around and it's a scary movie. It's the fact that the thing that is scariest are the dissolving minds of the people inside the supermarket. This movie is a brilliant examination of what happens when a mind is pushed to the breaking point. I love that. Does that make me a bit broken myself as a storyteller? Probably. Just to be able to watch these people fall apart and really enjoy that. But I don't know, just that psychology really interests me. So that is number 9, The Mist. Let's move on. Number 8 is Devil, which was kind of a bigger budget film, but it kind of had a small budget feel. This is my second very heavy nostalgia pick because I really enjoyed this movie in high school. I think I actually burned out one of my discs just watching it so much. Because anytime, again, it was another movie, or anytime I was with friends, this is the movie I would pull out and say, we're watching this. And yeah, you know what? They probably liked it too, the movie, but I was still the weirdo who decided to show his friends a bunch of people getting murdered in an elevator. So there was that. But looking back on it, I do now realize how good this movie was. It wasn't the scariest movie of all time, but like Session 9 and like The Mist, it's claustrophobic as heck, and almost to a higher degree because it legitimately is claustrophobic. There is a character that deals with claustrophobia in this because they're trapped in this little elevator. And I don't know, it's a fun character study as well because the entire movie is just about exploring the wrongs these characters have done and punishing them for it. I mean, they are trapped in this elevator with the devil hunting them for their sins. They are trapped there because of their sins. It has such a small budget feel to it because it's just one room and it's just focusing on these characters, but they do such a good job with it. I really enjoyed this really kind of slow burn atmosphere it has. It's just a brilliant film that myself and most of my friends can't get enough of. So that is my number 8, Devil. Let's move on to the next one. Number 7, As Above, So Below. So this movie messed me up. I adore this movie. It is definitely one of my all-time favorites, as you can probably tell because it's on this list. But it is incidentally my only found footage film on this list because I genuinely dislike that trope. I feel like there's some really good examples of it. Paranormal Activity is a good example. The original Blair Witch Project was pretty good. Not my favorite, but definitely understand why people love it. But yeah, I just feel like the found footage genre is a little bit overused recently. That said, I love this movie so much. First off, the atmosphere is great. The French catacombs, brilliant setting. As a creepy, horror-loving person, I have to go to the French catacombs at some point in my life. It's one of my travel bucket list items. As a storyteller, usually I would say the story of this movie would be a major flaw, considering that nothing really happens, other than the fact that these people go out in the French catacombs looking for treasure and are haunted by monsters, like this weird cosmic horror monster. But just the scares that happen to this group are fantastic. The way they're kind of the same as Devil. Their past crimes, their past sins, their past memories come back to haunt them. They relive their greatest regrets. And that is, as a person who loves characterization, that is something that really drives me to love this movie and to love movies like it, because it forces you to see character in a brand new way. Not only is it damned cruel to see these characters live out their greatest regrets, it forces us to be complicit with that like torture they're going through. You know, we are not fully experiencing their emotions. We are kind of the monster viewing this whole situation happening. And so it kind of leads to this wild ride feeling of you're the monster as much as the monster in the movie, which I really enjoy, especially since, like, with the camera, the first-person camera, I don't know. There's a lot of things I like about this movie, even though I don't like the found footage genre. So that is number 7. Let's move on. Number 6 is the actual newest film on this list. One of the movies that I have just recently, not discovered, but recently watched. And Us, the movie I'm talking about right now, is right up there with its directorial sibling, which is Get Out. Both of these films are fantastic. I like Us better just because I felt like it was a scarier experience all around. It was kind of more interesting story. Get Out was still fantastic. But nevertheless, both of these films do something incredibly well, which is addressing character and major social issues as a key aspect of their plots. I adore that, as I've said countless times now on this list. But the social issue part especially, from the start of the film, we are getting into the heads of our largely African-American cast. We are working to understand not just the supernatural horrors that are going on, but also the everyday horrors they face in the forms of racism and mental illness. I always believe that horror works best as an examination of what a person is going through, what a person's psychology is, and these movies do it so well. Because horror isn't just storytelling. It's kind of dark satire on what is going on in the world. Frankenstein was an examination of science and monstrosity of human life. Dracula was an examination of sexuality and lust and Christianity as a force for good in that book especially. Horror is a way to examine the human condition, and these movies do it so well in a dope as hell, creepy, funny atmosphere. So Jordan Peele, keep doing what you're doing. Keep making my skin crawl, because these movies are really, really good. If this list were all about nostalgia, this is another one that would be at the top, because this is another movie that I watched the heck out of when it first came out. This movie came out in 2013 originally, Oculus, and 2013 was my sophomore year of college. So I watched it about 30 times when I should have been studying for finals. I still did pretty good, but I should have been studying for finals. What I love about Oculus is that it takes one of our senses and turns it against us. You'll see that in another entry coming up, where I like that type of experimentation in horror, where it's our senses can't be trusted, or our senses are naturally against us. What makes us human is against us in these films, and I like that. Oculus is really interesting. The fact that you can't trust your eyesight or your hearing or your smell. Nothing in this film can be trusted after about the 20th minute, because this demonic mirror that is the main antagonist in this film, it makes people see and hear whatever it wants them to see and hear. that is stressful. It's a level of stress that just never dies away throughout the entire film. Um, you are looking everywhere on the screen because you don't know if what you're seeing is real. And that type of like forced immersion into a film is just brilliant, in my opinion. I mean, you might have a different opinion, you might not like the movie, but I find this movie very well done. For me, it's more than just that you can't trust yourself or the perceptions of the characters in this movie. This also does a really good job of just melding past events in our characters' lives with their present situation. It forces us to see how they've evolved as characters up to this point and how they're evolving now thanks to this demonic entity in their home. Character development usually isn't the major focus of any horror movie. I mean, the focus of horror movies is the grotesque. Jason Voorhees is coming for me. He's going to kill me in a very unique and interesting way. It's not really ever about the person being chased or being hunted. It's a monster. In this, it's all about the character, and I like that because it teaches it. It's a good stepping stone for other horror movies to say that story can be a major focus of your movie while still going with some pretty interesting and fun scares. So that's my number 5, Oculus. Number 4 is A Quiet Place, which of the films on this list, it's very, very similar to Oculus in a lot of ways. It's the one I mentioned with Oculus, the sense that it plays with one of the 5 senses of the human body. This time sound, although this time the villain is the one that has the super hearing and everyone else has to be silent or get killed. This was such a fun, interesting movie experience for me because it's so immersive. About almost 80% of the film is just perfectly silent. There's only the sound of the characters walking. There's sounds of them picking up and putting down stuff, but they're intentionally being very quiet. Because, as I said, the monsters in this film hunt by sound only. And it's something that's not really been done before in a movie, and I really appreciated that because from the very start, I was forced to be silent with these main characters. It just felt like if I was breaking that silence, I was going to be the reason they die in this movie. And it was kind of nerve-wracking for that reason. It adds another layer of immersion that I'm not used to. In that way, it's kind of a heart attack of a film because every moment it kind of creeps up on you and makes you fear just every jarring sound, because every sound that you hear in this movie is just incredibly loud. It's meant to be because it messes with your sense of perception in this, because it's meant to you're supposed to be right there with the characters. You're supposed to be right there experiencing what they're going through, the fear they're feeling. And to hear sounds is to hear death coming. And that's something that's really interesting in this movie. Especially for me, I'm the type of horror movie watcher that is the kind of, if I'm not laughing, I'm crying mentality. I taught my nephews to love horror because I taught them to make fun of it the entire time. I taught them to make a joke out of it because if you're laughing, you're not scared. And that's just kind of my thought process on it the entire time. This movie, I couldn't do that because any sound I made kind of with the immersion of the film made me feel like I was threatening the status quo of what was happening. And so I couldn't make my jokes. I couldn't laugh. And that was kind of tense and it made the movie scarier for me. But that is number 4, A Quiet Place. Let's move on to the next one. Number 3 is Hellraiser. This is probably the only real classic film on this list, which is kind of sad, but there are a lot of classics which I haven't seen. I actually haven't watched Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. I know everything that happens in those movies because of the internet, but for the most part, yeah, I haven't seen those, and that's something I want to remedy this year. But needless to say, Hellraiser is one of the few classics that I've actually seen. But it is also, not only is it the oldest film on this list, it's also the only one that has really spawned like a cult following. I actually came into watching Hellraiser because I read the comics that take place after the movie. I have Hellbound Heart, which was the original short story that Clive Barker wrote to create the character of Pinhead. And as I've said, Pinhead is one of my favorite monsters of all time. I think he's one of the best horror movie monsters of all time, because as the series goes on, you realize he's not just a monster. He's a person that was tortured to the point of becoming a literal demon from hell. Not only that, but Pinhead and the Cenobites are just incredibly creepy. Their designs are horrifying in every way. Like, each one is meant to play off of some form of human fear, whether it be needles or flayed skin, or just some of them are just meant to represent sin. They're just grotesque and horrible and monstrous, and I really enjoy their designs. I really enjoy trying to break down why they're so creepy as a character designer myself. One of the things I really enjoy about this movie is the theming. What's interesting about this first movie in the Hellraiser series is the fact that Pinhead and the Cenobites really don't show up very much in this movie. It's a story about this aspect of this movie is this love affair between this woman and her brother-in-law, and the lengths of sin that the brother-in-law has gone through. Like, he's just done all these monstrous things, including looking for the puzzle box that opens the gateway to hell and summons the Cenobites. The entire movie is about him trying to come back to life using very dark means, and this woman devolving and slowly allowing herself to help him with these dark things. It's a movie about social commentary. Again, I love social commentary in my horror, and this movie does really good job of exploring what people are willing to do, and the darkness within the human soul. So spooky. Yeah, this is one of my favorite films, so that's number 3. Let's move on. Number 2 probably isn't a surprise to most people, because this is one of the most popular horror films out there, the Conjuring series. And it's barely missing out on the top slot because, one, it is so popular, and I am borderline hipster, and anything mainstream is evil and blah, 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 and whatever. The next thing at the top spot is very, very mainstream, so I guess that doesn't fit at all. These movies, The Conjuring and all of its subsequent follow-ups, are based on the supposedly true stories of the Warrens, which are a husband and wife team of demonologists, medium, ghost hunter people. The Conjuring itself already has an interesting premise, because it does what movies like the Amityville Horror really focus on, which is movies like The Conjuring and the Amityville Horror. They really force you to experience it alongside the characters, because I have a family. I have parents and a brother and a sister and nephews and people that I love in my life that I wouldn't want this to happen to. And you're kind of forced to put yourself alongside these characters as they're experiencing these horrible things. You really root for them in that way. In a lot of the other ones I've talked about, you're rooting for the monster, you're rooting for the villain, but the monster in this movie really doesn't matter that much. It's the family suffering and trying to fight through this evil. It's much more of a heartwarming story than some of the other ones on this list. As I've said before, I am a storytelling enthusiast. I love story. I seek story first, but no matter what form it takes. The Conjuring is just a well-told story. That's what drew me in. It's a damn scary watch. They did a really good job with the effects and everything in this movie and the storyline and everything. But it's just a well-told story first and foremost, and that is enough to win me over. And number 1, It. I don't think anyone's surprised. If you watched my previous video on with my 6 horror fan arts, I said Pennywise is my favorite monster of all time. It is the pinnacle, one of the all-time best horror books, television series, and 2-part movie series pretty much ever made. You can do no wrong with it. I say that, and the book isn't perfect. The ending is very WTF in so many ways, but in general, you can do no wrong with this series, with this book, with this idea, with this characters, with this monster. Pennywise himself is one of the best horror monsters ever created, which is strange because there's nothing redeemable about him. You go with a character like Pennywise, you have to stick with it because like the Joker, there is nothing redeemable about this character. He is pure evil, and in that way, he kind of fits a lot of the themes that Stephen King really tries to push in his books, which are good versus evil, the fight between light and darkness. Um, there is no understanding Pennywise other than understanding the fact that he is there to cause fear, to consume your fear, and in that way, it is kind of Stephen King's masterpiece because it fits his themes so well. It goes through with all of his themes in so many different ways. I truly think that this film, this miniseries, everything about it is just one of the best horror things on the planet. This movie is just meant to be scary, and it's not. The movies themselves aren't necessarily the scariest horror movies I've ever watched, but they do a really good job of telling a story with some really damn good scares and character design and monster design. Not only that, the movies and the books and the miniseries all together bring together what I've talked about so far that I really like in horror movies. It's the claustrophobia and confrontation of personal evil like there is in Devil in Session 9, and the psychological examination of characters like in As Above, So Below and Oculus, and the amazing monster design like in Hellraiser and Quiet Place. And more than anything, it has the believable, emotional, and very human story backing it up, like The Conjuring and Us and The Mist. Overall, this is a film that will inspire generations of horror fans. That's all I can say about it because it is such a good milestone. Not just the two films that most recently came out, but the miniseries and the book. Again, some unsavory elements in the book, but overall, this is a story that needs to be read and understood and retold because it is just so good. So you've made it through the end. Yes, this was a very experimental kind of take on my videos. I really hope you enjoyed the exploration of like the studies, the color. My main focus on this one was color, trying to really understand how light works on the human skin and stuff. But I also just wanted to explore this format of the kind of sketchbook vlog that I got the idea for. Let me know down in the comments if you liked it, because I think I like it. Also, let me know if you like my new camera setup, because I'm using my phone, which has a better camera than my actual camera that I spent $200 on. And the ring light, I got some better lighting going on in here. So let me know what you think of everything that I did today and down in the comments. Leave a like if you like the video, and be sure to hit subscribe if you like this channel. I do a lot of nerdy videos, and I'm going to start uploading a little more regularly now. With all of that said, be safe, be kind, and have a little fun this week. See you next time. Bye.